This is Barbara Tatum with Barbara Tatum Law. October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so I'm putting together a series of videos to cover topics about domestic violence. It is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I'm a former domestic violence prosecutor. I worked in protective orders and protective orders enforcement in El Paso County when I first got out of law school. It's an incredibly rewarding and also a very tough job. It's also near and dear to my heart because of personal experience. I'm a domestic violence survivor. My father abused my mother and my sisters and myself for almost 2 decades. He continued abuse after the divorce as well. We had a quite dramatic childhood. My mother actually had to shoot my father in order to leave. She did not kill him, and shooting him did not end his abuse of our family. I know firsthand the trauma that children experience in a violent home, and I'm committed to every child growing up in a safe home. I adore my mother, and I know the guilt that she lives with because she was unable to get us safe earlier, despite circumstances that really made it almost impossible for her to leave. I know the fact that she didn't feel safe until my father died decades after they divorced. Domestic violence is a scourge. It ruins families. It ruins people. It breaks spirits. It leads to murders, suicides. It hurts the victims. It hurts their children. It hurts the abusers. The relationships that they create through violence are not the relationships that they want. Well, they're not the relationships they aspire to want. Although abuse is a conscious choice, it's not someone losing their temper. It's not someone had a few too many drinks. It's a conscious choice about power and control. This month, I want to educate you about abuse, help you recognize it, help you spot it in other people, help you spot it in yourself, talk about some of the factors that can influence things, talk about safety planning, all those issues. By the end of this month, I want you to feel like you're an expert on abuse and that you can have the resources to reach out to get help for yourself or to help someone else. That said, every situation is different. No matter how much information you have about a violent situation, about domestic violence, about power and control and cycles of abuse, people can still find themselves in an abusive relationship. You can know everything about domestic violence and still be unable to help a family member escape. It's a very complicated social issue. It's a complicated personal issue. Finances touch on it, the law touches on it, logistics touches on it, and as hard as it is to imagine, love touches on it. It's just so someone abuses you does not mean that you stop loving them, which is probably one of the most complicated parts of domestic violence. This month, I intend to go over these topics: the dangers of leaving a situation, getting a protective order and what protective orders do and can't do, the importance of safety planning, how to develop a safety plan, red flags for lethality in a relationship, pets and domestic violence and gender, safety planning for your pets, the playful use of force and sex, gaslighting and domestic violence, otherwise known as crazy making, narcissism and domestic violence. No, just because they're an abuser doesn't necessarily mean they're a narcissist. Some abusers are just assholes. Safety planning and weapons. If there's a gun in the home, a victim is 500 times more likely to be murdered. Understanding abuse, the warning signs of abuse, how abuse is about power and control, not about loss of temper, why people abuse, the cultural impact on abuse, children and domestic violence, why people stay, helping someone who is being abused, help for abusers, the role that isolation plays in domestic violence, financial abuse, understanding the other side of the abuser. Why are they such a nice guy or a nice girl when they're not being abusive? homophobia and abuse, transphobia and abuse, pregnancy and abuse. The riskiest time for most women in a violent situation is when they are pregnant. Whether or not you should seek couples therapy if you're in an abusive situation. My take on it, no. Couples therapy is not appropriate for people in domestic violence situations. Whether abusers can change, and if so, does it matter? The short answer is yes, abusers can change, even if they're unlikely to do so. And does it matter? My opinion is no. That relationship will never be safe for you. If I move my hand and you flinch, I still have the power, even if it's been years since I've hit you. Then we're going to talk about documenting abuse. And finally, we're going to talk about substance abuse and domestic violence. No, drugs and alcohol do not make someone violent, but by lowering inhibitions, they can make abuse more likely to happen. So, if you want to learn more about domestic violence, please follow along on this video channel. I'll be releasing a video a day on one of those topics. You can also follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, Barbara Tatum Law. Or you can check out my website, www.barbaratatumlaw.com. Ironically, I do not practice divorce law, although I do some postnuptial agreements, and I practice outside of an area that would traditionally be a domestic violence area. But this is a topic that is near and dear to me, and the more information I can get to people about domestic violence, especially in October, then the better prepared people are to deal with it, whether it's in their own families or among their friends and loved ones. Stay safe.